Anytime.
Newsflash. Steve Jobs and Apple just announced that they're changing the name of their iPod to the J-Pod. Marketing, they're looking to mix things up, try something new, increase market share, sell the product at a higher price. What do you think? Has anyone else heard this announcement today? Of course not, because this concept is absolutely ridiculous. The reason why Apple focuses on the I in the product, the iMac, the iPod, the iTouch, the iPhone, is because they realize the value of brand equity. And I'm here today to tell you all, as small business owners and future entrepreneurs, why you should also value and take note of the importance of brand equity. So before I could go into brand equity and give you examples, I should probably define what brand equity is, what a brand is. And a brand, the overall definition, is basically a name or a symbol that identifies the source of your product. So let's say Nike. Nike, for example, has their little swoosh symbol. Starbucks has their little person in a crown or a queen or a king or whatever the heck it is, but it's a symbol. And when I see that symbol, I associate it with Starbucks. So we all know it's important to have a strong, reputable brand in whatever product or service we're selling. So with that, it's important to build brand equity from our brand or the product that we're selling. So what is brand equity? Brand equity is an intangible asset that is based on your customer's perception of your product. It's something that can be accrued over time or decrease over time based upon the value or perception that your product has to the customer. So let's go back to the iPod example. How many of us have been to Best Buy or any other store and you see an iPod MP3 player on the shelf next to one by Realtek or Sony or some other manufacturer? Is it safe to say that the iPod is usually about $50 to $100 more than the rest of the competitive MP3 players on the shelf? Why is that? Because Apple has developed a strong brand equity behind their brand name. So let me give you some more examples as to go into our little brand equity exercise, the difference between valuing and understanding brand equity versus not understanding it, so to speak. So Ford, the automobile manufacturer. How many of us are familiar with Ford Taurus? All right, it's been around for a while. Ford Windstar. Minivan, dependable family car. So back in 2005 or 2006, Ford and its marketing department decided to shake things up a bit, looking to increase sales and revenue. They decided to drop the Ford Taurus completely and turn their product line into 3 different models. The Ford Fusion and the Ford 5000 being 2 of those. How many of us have heard or are familiar with the Ford 5000? Or know what a Ford 5000 looks like if you saw one on the road? Okay, a few, but not as many as a Ford Taurus. They also decided to do away or redesign their minivan and change the name of the Windstar to Freestar. Similar concept. I think it's safe to assume that most of us are more familiar with the brand affiliation of Windstar versus Freestar. So what was the result of this? The result of this was that the Ford 5000 production was cut after nearly 2 years. Same held true with the Ford Freestar minivan. Reason behind this is Ford failed to recognize the value that they developed in their brand equity behind the brand of their existing models. Now let's give a good example of brand equity. IBM sells their computer department to Lenovo. IBM decides to sell the trademark name that we're all pretty much familiar with. I think 3 or 4 or 5 of you have ThinkPads in this classroom. So what are your thoughts if Lenovo had purchased IBM's laptop or computer department and had not paid for the Lenovo name brand image? Do you think their sales would be strong or as strong as they are today if they would have not purchased that component with that? More than likely not. Brand equity is important to you and your companies, whether they're new, small. And how do we build brand equity? Number one, you need to have a strong introduction. Introduce a quality product to the market. Do it well. Spend time building a brand and focusing on a brand in your product or your service. Second is to elaborate on that brand. Make your brand easy to remember. Repetitiveness through marketing. Offer free samples of your product, of your service. Get it out to the masses. Make sure it's reputable and build on that brand. And last is fortification. Develop a brand that carries a consistent image over time. So if your image is service and providing service, stick with that and make sure that your brand or any extensions you have from that carry the same notion. And what are the benefits? Why should we all invest? Why should you all invest Why should you all invest in brand equity in your companies? Reason being, number one, you'll have more predictable income down the road. Number two, it'll increase your cash flow by increasing your market share, which will allow for better premium pricing. And last but not least, brand equity is an actual physical, tangible asset that can be sold or leased. So the hard work that you put in to developing a strong brand and creating brand equity in the infancy of your companies now can translate to long-term success. And one day down the road, some of us or many of us can have strong brands similar to Rolls-Royce, Nike, Starbucks, ThinkPad, etc. So in closing, don't underestimate the value of brand equity in your company.